It feels like we're finally really ramping up a gear for the final 3 episodes. So maybe not. Welcome to my Mandalorian Season 3, Episode 6 breakdown. And we've got 2 episodes left now. Now, I did that little bit of a joke at the beginning because given that I would say I think most people are on the same page when it comes to this season of Mando. We've had, I'm not going to negate the fact that we've had main plot. I'm not one of those people who's saying every single last episode is filler, but it feels like we've had a lot more kind of interlude-esque moments, which has been a lot of Star Wars fun, like this episode, and we'll get into that. But I really think people were starting to think that the final 3, after what we've had this season so far, would be going like ham into just like heavy main plot stuff, whether that's with regards to Moth Gideon, the retaking of Mandalore, the Mythosaur, this, that, and the other, reuniting Mandalorians. But this episode, albeit that we got a cool moment at the end, it was very much so a in-between thing. A very, like, probably the most in-between thing we've had in a while. So the way I look at this episode, it was definitely like a space cop kind of, Mando and Bo-Katan buddy episode, mixed with them being Blade Runners, also mixed with a bit of Will Smith's iRobot, if you know what I mean there. It had quite a few things it felt like it was drawing influence from. So let's go through the events of the episode. I honestly don't know how long this will take me because, do you know what I mean? It's not like it's very integral to break down to the overall main thing going on this season with retaking Mandalore and everything like that. So let me know what you thought, of course, down in the comments below. Would really appreciate a like if you're enjoying this Star Wars content. And let's just dive right into it. So right at the beginning, we have this freighter that's hailed by seemingly Imperials, but it turns out to be none other than the Mandalorians that used to follow Bo-Katan. They were commissioned to track down this Captain Shaggoth, I believe, by a Mon Calamari Viceroy, because she absconded with her son, who was a prince. So that's more or less all there was to the beginning of the episode. It's just kind of meant to be like, oh, this is what they've been up to. They're getting credits, and the main episode is about Bo-Katan and Mando even getting to them. And this was mostly that for the whole duration of the episode. And I looked at Twitter, as I usually do, to gather certain people's opinions, whether that's fellow content creators, or go on a hashtag to see what people were saying. And a lot of people are saying that this felt like a kind of random Clone Wars episode. And a lot of Clone Wars episodes, don't get me wrong, have fun Star Wars moments in it. It's very side plot oriented. It doesn't often go in heavy with like this overarching main plot. And, that is what Clone Wars did. It embraced it quite a bit. But Mando, with only a few episodes left before diving into this too much, it seems to be what they're doing here as well. So they land on this world and they're greeted by Imperial droids, and they're immediately summoned by the leadership of the planetary democracy, which turned out to be none other than Jack Black and Lizzo. Now, I love Jack Black. I really, really do. And it was cool, I guess, seeing him pop up in this episode. And this is something I do want to convey. I don't know if I'm giving mixed signals. Maybe I am, because I guess I do feel a bit mixed myself. All while this is Star Wars fun, this episode still embraces what The Mandalorian through Jon Favreau and Dave Filoni kind of brought back to the Star Wars feeling. I think it's just, all while I was trying to enjoy myself this episode and went along with the ride, it just felt like, are we really getting this at this point of the season when it feels like we've had kind of rinse and repeat every now and again? So ultimately, I think people were just feeling that this season, it just didn't have a whole bunch of story to it. It has story. Don't get me wrong there, it has story, just not necessarily a whole bunch, which is why it could feel as though it spread so thin between the 8 episodes of this season. Another way to look at it with the main plot of this season is that if you took the moments that actually progress the main plot, I dare say that it would probably fit those scenes into 1 episode. Probably not even 2. Some of these episodes have been more enjoyable than others, such as Saving Pacifica's Son. The reason why I say all of that is because I do want to stress that not everything is labeled how can I say it, like filler, because that's the popular word to use these days. It's definitely overused, but filler. I don't want to put all of it under the same umbrella, but when you have an abundance of it, with some moments better than others, or some stories or side stories that take up a whole episode, which is better than some other side stories for other episodes, you get this kind of overwhelming feeling of just kind of this stagnancy throughout the season, with like a few moments where the line graph kind of goes up, but then, carries on stagnant, and then it goes up again, and I'm hoping that the final two will be like going up and up and up again. But anyway, tried to distract myself from getting into that too early, but I guess I couldn't help myself. We have Jack Black's character, Captain Bombardier, I believe, and Lizzo, the Duchess. Essentially, Jack Black's character was a planning officer or something during the war, but thanks to the New Republic amnesty program, he's helped rebuild Plaza 15. So he got a better deal than Dr. Pershing did, I guess, who had to like sort through the freaking archives day after day after day. So they essentially introduced to them that they have a droid problem, a malfunction. The planet's droids were reprogrammed for peace, but they're using battle droids, super battle droids, to carry out tasks that aid every single person on the planet or in this city from having to work. Like, these people can't really operate without droids helping them, so they all live in luxury and just chill out. Bogutan points out that, well, the other Mandalorians would make quick work of these battle droids. And I don't know about this excuse, maybe I'm missing something, but we have Captain frickin' Jack Black say that the charter forbids any standing army from entering their city. For example, their constables aren't even allowed to carry blasters. But then they say, yeah, you are Mandalorians. Weapon and armor are intrinsic to your culture, are they not? But it's like, well, so are the Mandalorians out there in the freaking Imperial dockyard thing. Surely you could have got like 2 of them to come in and do a job. I guess it's because they're paid protection, so they're seen as the army, and so they can't come in. But I still found this a bit of like a weak excuse for like why they had to propel the reasoning forward for why Bo-Katan and Mando, or Djarin himself, having to handle this, rather than like, do you see what I mean? It's like, right, here's our reason for the side story this episode. So to kind of make this worthwhile for them, Jack Black's character said that, they would view this as an act of diplomacy between their planet and Mandalore. They'd recognize Mandalore as a sovereign system, and they would even petition to the New Republic to recognize it as such. So Bo-Katan and Din are just kind of like, we'll do it. We'll do it. So this is where we get the investigation. They go to the commissioner, and it's none other than Christopher Lloyd. So again, this episode is filled with all kinds of cameos that I don't think any of us were expecting. He shows them the security recordings of some disastrous droid moments. They first go to the Ugnaughts, who were working on the droids. They insist that there's nothing wrong with their repairing or anything like that of the droids. It was pretty cool how Mando brought up how he was a friend of Ugnaught Kuil from season 1, saying the whole I have spoken thing, and they give him like a likelihood of where the next droid thing could happen. Bo-Katan and Din go to the loading docks, and she mentions how she hasn't seen battle droids since the Clone Wars. Look, guys, they said Clone Wars. Everyone's mind is blown. But this was quite a funny moment, to be honest, because we had Bo talking to the battle droid, and it was almost like there was such a sentience here, like he was covering for the super battle droids. We had Din Djarin kicking the super battle droids, because obviously if they were programmed for peace, this wouldn't remotely phase them. This is where the iRobot comparisons come in, because this battle droid completely throws him aside and starts escaping for his life. I found the chase scene pretty cool, especially when we have Bo-Katan like engage her jetpack to jump, but maybe a bit nitpicky here. I did feel like when they were trying to get past all the people, there's such a big open area. I felt like Din Djarin and Bo-Katan could have ignited their jetpacks to fly over the people and just get to the super battle droid a lot faster. I don't really see why there was any reason why they couldn't do that. Long story short, they shoot the super battle droid and they find a resistor on it, and it leads them to the Droid Bar, and they confront the droid bartender about giving out spark pads, and he's like, well, we give out a lot of spark pads. We had the droids talk about how concerned they are about being replaced by humans, and this is what I mean. As I'm like recapping every bullet point, I just think, what is this plot that I'm breaking down for like the last 3 episodes of the show? It's like, I'm so conflicted. It's like, yes, I guess it's enjoyable as a bit of Star Wars television, but I'm just conflicted because these are the plot bullet points that I'm going through and breaking down for arguably what we thought would be a main episode of The Mandalorian Season 3. But anyway, need to get out of that. They talk to the bartender, and he says that they're served Nepenthe, I believe it was called, a lubricant that protects against mechanical wear, while also delivering program-refreshing subparticles. So they go to get this Nepenthe tested, which is when we had that probe unit go pretty damn crazy, and Mando split it in two with the Darksaber, and they realize that the Nepenthe, or whatever it is, has a little chain code on it, which informs them that it was requisitioned by the security office, and essentially it was ordered by one individual, the commissioner that we met earlier. So they pay him a visit again and confront him. He's threatening the whole time to trigger this failsafe that will basically engage all of the docile workforce to go into like Clone Wars mode and completely decimate everyone. They realize that he's a separatist, and he doesn't really so much like the wording there, but he was saying that he supports democracy. Count Dooku was a visionary, and he was cut short in his prime by the Jedi Enforcer, but then he gets taken out by Bo by being stunned. So I guess he was actually going to name that Jedi, and I think we all know who that is. One thing I did find interesting about this is that we've seen, obviously, quite a bit of various politics this season with Star Wars, like, obviously, the New Republic and how kind of crap that they can be, and the differences, really, between that of them and the Imperials, the Imperial side of things, and now it's just like, hey, there's still some people out there who view the Separatist movement as the true democracy. So we have Bo-Katan and Mando return to the Captain and the Duchess with the Commissioner, who says that the planet is unrecognizable since Captain Bombardier arrived, which, you know, what I do like about this again is it highlights just like how I'm sure there's even people on Coruscant who view the New Republic and just like, no, actually, I preferred the Empire. So, you know, it's got that kind of commentary, I suppose, underneath it, but still, it's, you know, I think it's just this late in the game. You know, I wouldn't have minded this episode so much if this was one of the few in a hypothetical parallel world where there wasn't so much of that this season, but there kind of has been. So, all while I am happy with Mando in many ways, you know, with what I'm looking at here, it did feel like a bit of an MMORPG side quest. By the way, guys, main plot time. After Grogu gets knighted, they get granted an audience with the other Mandalorians, finally, right? So when she gets there, she challenges Axe Woves to a fight because, you know, he's kind of enjoying his position of being a leader. And I loved the music in the background, even in the conversation as this was brewing. I really enjoyed the fight. Bo-Katan is just kick-ass. I definitely do agree with a lot of people, and I'm not even critiquing this necessarily, by the way, where they say, like, the Mandalorian being the show's title, the Mandalorian of this season 100% is Bo-Katan Kryze. So yeah, the fight was really awesome. The action was great, and she bested Axe Woves. But despite that, he was still trying to dig into her with some relevant criticism, I think, to what they hold as a very important thing for a leader to have. So he says, "You'll never be the true leader of our people. You won't even take the Darksaber. He's the one you should be challenging." And as Bo says, like, enough Mandalorian blood has been spilled by our own hands. And she tries to sell them on this, like Mandalorians are stronger together. But again, they clap back by saying a misguided zealot possesses the blade. And he points out, but the thing is, according to our ways, the ruler of Mandalore must possess the Darksaber. And that's when Mando was like, then she shall have it. But once again, she's like, well, I can't accept this unless, you know, I beat you in a duel. Which is when he thinks of, in his mind, a reason, which does technically work. He says, well, while exploring Mandalore, I was captured, and as a result, this blade was taken from me. Now, Bo-Katan rescued me and slayed my captor, which is kind of weird to think that little spider droid mechanical thing was technically the rightful ruler to Mandalore for a few seconds because he, by rights and by creed, you know, won the Darksaber. But she defeated the enemy that defeated him, and would this blade then not belong to her? And they're all just like, you know, cogs turning in their head like, yeah, it would. Yeah, it would. So, for the first time in a long time, Bo-Katan in this moment is seeing people, and she's wielded the Darksaber before after Sabine gave it to her, but now it's different. She's seeing people acknowledge that she is wielding it but rightfully so wielding it. Now, sure, you could say something like, why didn't Mando immediately after that just give her the Darksaber? My only, excuse for the show there is that I guess he just didn't think about it at the time. And as for why Bo-Katan, gave the Darksaber back after her fight with the spider mechanical droid, I guess it just slipped their mind, and plus Bo-Katan was very already defeated. Her ambition for, ruling Mandalore wasn't so much a thing anymore. Again, hence the sulking on the throne thing. So I suppose this is why it's coming up now. I think for her, this season has just been about belonging somewhere and wanting to actually unite Mandalorians for the right reason and not just because of her birthright. But now it's kind of worked out because fates have aligned and she's the rightful ruler of Mandalore. What happened to the mythosaur? I mean, I'm not saying that's gone, but is she not only going to have the Darksaber now, but also when they, go back to Mandalore, because look how many freaking Mandalorians she has. It's not just like a few from the previous season. It's those characters plus these extras in the background as well. So I guess they're going to go back, and one cool thing to see would be if they kind of tag team the mythosaur, but maybe that would defeat the point of just like Mandalore the Great soloing the mythosaur. So I don't know. I would love to know your ideas there, but it's kind of obvious where things will go roughly anyway. They now have a fleet. She's now the rightful ruler of Mandalore. She literally has access to the Darksaber in the right way, as Din Djarin explained. So everything seems to be teeing up nicely for them to just go back to their home planet. But we can't forget about Moff Gideon. We can't forget that there was Beskar steel found in that transport ship. Now, of course, there has been a theory floating out there with what if it is other Mandalorians. I even entertain that myself. And that, of course, would be a big shame because, in the past, there's been a lot of Mandalorian civil wars and things like that. So it's just as they're trying to get them together, why would some Mandalorians help Moff Gideon out knowing that he was involved in the Night of 1,000 Tears, the Great Purge? Would it really be that? Some people thought it'd be Sabine, but at the same time, why would Sabine kill, New Republic officers who were dead floating in the transport ship? So that ruled her out. So a lot of people were then, and I think this is the most likely theory, thinking that, well, Moff Gideon did have access to a lot of Beskar, right? So maybe somehow he got busted out by people who followed him and equipped his Beskar stash to make weaponry, armor, and God knows what. And for all we know, when we see him again, he could have his own plot armor suit, just like Din Djarin. One thing I've seen on Twitter initially after seeing the episode as well is that I think people, as much as they're acknowledging the ending was cool of the fight, I think they expected Bo-Katan's moment of getting the Darksaber to be maybe a lot more victorious, potentially. Now, that's funny to say after she had a fight, but the way she got it in actuality was Din Djarin to be like, oh, but basically this happened, here, take it. Do you see what I mean? Now, I'm not saying it had to cause a whole bunch of drama or whatever between her and Mando and people wanting to see them finally fight, and Bo-Katan was secretly off this whole season, but I don't know, it felt like maybe they could have just done something a little bit more, not necessarily a fight, I do want to stress that, but to finally give that moment to her. I'm a bit torn on the execution myself. I don't necessarily have a better suggestion right now, but to me, this also kind of is a bit of a metaphor for just this season in general. As much as I still found this episode enjoyable to say it one time, I do think a majority of people can agree with me. Maybe you're gonna be like, Boba, no. Screw you, man. Why can't you just enjoy it or something like that? Look, more power to you if you've had that experience of this whole season up until the moment of where we're at with 2 final episodes left, right? But I do feel like something's been off about it. It feels like it has been somewhat meandering a little bit with the flow of the story. And I do stick with what I said earlier with how there is story, main plot for this season, but the amount of it is like a little bit of butter, like a teeny bit of butter that has been spread way too thinly on the toast. You know what I mean? It's not filling all the areas. It's not like the nice amount you would want. So as a result, if you have a thin, weird analogy here, a thin bit of butter, it would spread thinly, and thus you get all of these other episodes that feel like, okay, this was fun. But then you get another one. So, okay, I hope we get back to the main plot soon. But then there's another one and another one and another one, and you're like, oh. And then you're in the final 3 episodes expecting it to go ham on all of these other plot points, Gideon, Mandalore, Mythosaur, Mandalorians uniting and everything, and it's like, oh, we've got another one. So while we will appreciate Star Wars and what Favreau and Filoni are still giving us here with battle droids and this, that, and the other, it's like, So that's my thoughts on this episode of The Mandalorian. Now, I hope I can say now, I think I do say this with confidence, that the final 2 episodes will be going ham. And everyone, you know, I think the thing about Mando as well, as soon as it does something pretty cool, especially in the final 2 episodes, I think a lot of people will be forgetting about anything that they've said ill of this season so far, which I don't think should happen. I think a season should still be judged on its own merits, but as well as its flaws. Just because they might pull another Luke Skywalker-esque moment out in the final couple of episodes doesn't make the whole thing shine brightly. But one thing I do want to say is I do hope and I do think that these final 2 will be the ones that they've put so much ammunition into. And I think that they have to do that, actually, to really kind of, I don't really want to use the word redeem, but kind of make this season look as good as what people viewed the first and second season as. So let me know your thoughts down in the comments below. Any theories you have? What do you think about the criticisms of Mando Season 3 in general? What did you think about this episode being in the final 3, but kind of being a complete side story? And, you know, still as per the formula, getting to the last 2 minutes and doing something with the main plot? Is it just maybe not enough for you? Do you agree that it's been spread too thin with the story that they have for this season? Can't wait to see what you have to say. Like this video if you did enjoy it. I'd really appreciate that. Still grinding out Star Wars content. Don't get a bunch of views on it, but, you know, it's a passion of mine, so would love the show of appreciation for covering this content if you're enjoying it along with me. But until next time, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for watching. I hope you all have a lovely rest of your day, and may the Force be with you always.